So is there any difference between the goal of marathon or 100 miles? Would you say, should I be prepping for 100 miles if that's at all a possibility?
The big difference is going to be like you're dropping intensity significantly by going up to 100 miles versus the marathon. So the maximum aerobic function, I think, is actually going to feed into that maybe a little bit better. It's probably going to be a little closer, depending on where. I mean, it all varies a bit because like people will focus on specific distances and they'll get very efficient and very adapted to that. So like it kind of like it's what makes running kind of messy, where like you'll get for example, like the average person can hit their like lactate threshold for probably about like 60 minutes or something like that. Whereas you get these elite marathoners who've been basically spending their entire life preparing for a marathon race, they can push almost up to their lactate threshold and at their lactate threshold for almost like 2 hours. So it gets a little messy when you start looking at it from that lens, but you don't really have to worry about that too much because you're not really focusing on being the best possible 100 miler or the best possible marathoner you could be. You want enough overall fitness that you can just do either one of them without absolute misery because you did the couch to 100 miles.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think like for 100 miles, the biggest difference, I think, given your context, is just like the more physical things you are doing, the better prepared you're going to be for the 100 mile. So it's almost, given your context, I wouldn't say irrelevant. You want to be doing running, but you're going to be doing that. Once you put it in your program, it sounds like it's going to be pretty locked in. You're going to want to also like it if you view it this way, it's probably going to be more mentally beneficial too, where, hey, today I did my run, I did my body weight exercises, I did some grappling practice. I spent 3 hours working out today.
Yeah.
If you think of it like that, then you're moving your body, you're doing things that are active for a good chunk of the day, especially relative to most people. So that's going to actually be very helpful for you. The problem or the battle to get over is going to just be like you're going to break down physically running 100 miles. I mean, you're going to break down physically running a marathon too. So like you might just have to push through a little more discomfort, like from a physical standpoint, compared to be if you decided I'm going to do everything I can in these next like 24 weeks to be able to run a full 100 miler.
Would you say it's physical or is it mental discomfort? Like, I mean, isn't everything physically uncomfortable? Like, what do you train for if you're training for the chaos of, so it's not necessarily the 100 miles, it's the chaos of the unexpected, which might include 100 miles, but it might also include 1,000 push-ups in my case. So like,
you need to be a jack of all trades is what you need to be.
Yeah, but also like building up the confidence, or maybe not. I don't know. How do you survive 1,000 push-ups? It's a combination of confidence that you have to know that you can do that kind of thing, not necessarily the actual number, but like doing crazy stuff. And the second is probably the base strength and endurance, and also just the practicing that process of not quitting. Right? I feel like that's one of the things I really need to do in the running space is like doing slightly unpleasant things where I'm practicing that, like bringing my mind back and saying, nope, I'm going to keep doing it. And part of the running every day has that benefit because some days you really don't feel like running, and doing that, then you're practicing that muscle of doing it anyway. I don't know if there's something you can say in terms of advice how to practice like doing something unpleasant every day or frequently.
Yeah, what I would do with that is I would try to make the unpleasant thing be different from one day to the next, if you can. So the fear I would have with making running unpleasant every time would be it becomes like a negative feedback loop in your physiologically, potentially, as well as mentally, where if the entire running process is miserable, you're going to be miserable when you step on that starting line, whether it's a marathon or 100 miles. So
you've trained yourself that running equals miserable.
Well, and here's the thing, like, I mean, if you look at just like, here's where the literature says on paper are like the, dozen workouts you should do in a training plan. And this is how you should structure them right down to the minute. And you just say like, I'm going to give everyone this schedule and they're going to do this every time, rinse and repeat. My biggest concern with that approach is you are potentially putting them in a position where the training is so boring and so monotonous that like if they hit a roadblock mentally, they're going to fall apart very quick because they've already exhausted themselves mentally just trying to do the same old interval every time, doing the same old, workout. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like one specific plan in its entirety. It could just be like the mix of things within it. So like rather than like if I just said, oh, we're going to do 3-minute intervals through this entire short interval process, or 2-minute intervals, or 4-minute intervals, or 60-second intervals, by that 6th week, they might be so sick of that they're not actually maximizing their potential within that because there's no flavor there. And then they're also actually getting less out of themselves than they would if we just got a little more creative and said, okay, let's mix this up and let's do, 4 1-minute intervals, then take a little bit of a break, and then we'll do 3-minute intervals, or at least changing it up from week to week so that they have something different showing up, even though we're addressing the same kind of physiological adaptation. So like, I think what you want to do is you want to introduce the misery. You want to be able to test yourself to the degree where like when you can recognize these points of, I don't want to be here, but I can do it and push through it. But recognize that like, there's not necessarily going to be one event that you want to lean on to get that from, because you won't want to make that one event so miserable that you don't want to do it when it comes time for the challenge. So if you can possibly say like, okay, on Tuesdays, the push-up workout, I'm going to go 10 push-ups more than I want to. I'm going to get to that point where I'm like, there's no more. And then I'm going to do 10 more. And you're going to make that one miserable. And then maybe on, Thursdays, you decide to do like some of those sprints or something at the end where you do a few of them and you're like, okay, this is where I'd be comfortable to stop. Like, well, I'm going to do 2 more of them because I know I don't want to do 2 more of them. But mix that up. So at least you're getting enjoyment from some of it and not just getting complete disgust from the entire process.
Yeah, there's actually quite a lot of ways that I can introduce misery into the push-ups and the running, get creative, including, even just like stuff outside of the running, like taking freezing cold showers, those kinds of things, just introducing random kind of chaos into the system, or having conversations with people as an introvert. It's terrifying.
More podcasts.
More podcasts.